Welcome to this video created by City & Guilds to introduce you to two very new exciting roles. We have roles for Independent Endpoint Assessors and roles for Lead Independent Endpoint Assessors. Very important in taking forward the new endpoint assessment process forward for City & Guilds, and we are now operating in over 50 standards for endpoint assessment. This video is to introduce you to the role, to tell you a little bit about why you might want to apply, the important information you need in order to consider it, and also to understand what the expectations are. So my name's Simon, and I'd like to introduce Veronica. Hello. Who's come to talk to us about the role. We are both Lead Independent Assessors as well as Independent Endpoint Assessors. So Veronica, if I can just talk to you about these roles, and for a long time we've had the frameworks for apprenticeships, and now we've got standards. So what's the difference?
So you're right, Simon, it's a huge change and one of the biggest reforms that we've seen in apprenticeships. So the main difference is that the apprentice is assessed through an independent endpoint assessment by an independent endpoint assessor. Previously, they would have been carrying out assessments formatively and summatively across their apprenticeship programme and then achieve their apprenticeship. Whereas now with the standards, we have every standard has an endpoint assessment which they have to achieve once going through the gateway to achieve their overall apprenticeship in that particular standard.
Okay, so it is, as you say, quite a big change then. What led to the change, and who leads on all of this?
So it's employer-led, that's the biggest thing, it is employer-led. So the employer groups put together the standards and it was to make sure that we drive forward the skills across the different occupational areas. So it put them very much in the driving seat. They created the standard and what they were looking for and what that apprentice has to achieve in that occupational area to say that they are occupationally competent and achieve their apprenticeship.
So are all endpoint assessments the same?
No, they're not. So each standard has a different endpoint assessment, and that is detailed within the assessment plan. So the assessment plan is a document that outlines the occupational brief, so the standards that they have to meet, but also how that apprentice will then be independently assessed at the end of their apprenticeship.
Okay, so this role, the Independent Endpoint Assessor, or affectionately known as IEPA, what is it?
So again, it's the Independent Endpoint Assessor is the person that is going out and do the endpoint assessment for that apprentice. So the key word there and the key crucial part to the role is the independence and the impartiality. This person, the IEPA, will not have had any contact or been involved in the apprentice's apprenticeship journey at all. They are there to independently assess them on their endpoint assessment.
So hence completely independent.
Exactly.
Excellent. So why might I do it? Why might people want to apply?
There are lots of reasons why you would want to apply to be an independent endpoint assessor, and everybody has their own reasons. When we speak to people who have applied, everybody has their own reasons for wanting to apply for the role. So it could be that you want to give something back to industry. You may have years of industry experience and you want to be part of driving forward and improving the skills across the different industries. You may want to improve your own experience and knowledge and bring that to a different type of assessment. You may want to improve your knowledge and skills and then bring that back to your own organisation to help and support the development of your own apprenticeship programmes. So there's lots of reasons why you would want to come and join us as an IEPA.
So if I'm working in a centre, I could still apply?
Yes, you could. You could still apply. The key thing is that we are looking for different standards. There are different person specifications. So we're looking for different standards, different things that we're looking for you to apply.
So you've outlined a number of reasons why you might want to be an IEPA. You haven't mentioned money.
So in terms of the pay, we pay slightly above the standard rate for the industry for an independent endpoint assessor. So the feedback that we've had from our IEPAs is that we paid slightly above, so they are quite happy with the rate of pay that they receive from us. Okay,
so what types of contracts might there be? Because if some people are already working, they might have some time spare, or if some people have got more time, what sort of options are there for contracting?
Okay, so what we do ask is that you commit to a minimum of 25 days per year, and you're taking contracts roll annually, and you're taking on as an associate role. But we do also have fixed term contracts, and we are currently piloting fixed-term contracts for IEPAs for certain standards. So please do look out for those on the City and Guilds website.
Okay, and is it worth applying? What's the expected volumes? If I apply, is there going to be any work available?
That's one of the things we do get asked quite a lot. So if I am successful, what sort of numbers can I expect? How many bookings will I get as an IEPA? And the answer to that is it very much depends on the standard that you apply for. As you said earlier, we currently look after over 50 standards, and the numbers vary across those standards. But as we are now evolving as an endpoint assessment organisation, the standards have been running for a while. The numbers are starting to come in, and you'll see on the website that we are now driving recruitment across a variety of standards because those numbers are growing.
So the volumes are already started coming, have they?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So what sort of professional standards, what expectations are there of people who want to apply? What sort of things do they have to demonstrate?
So obviously City and Guilds have the policies and procedures, and we have expectations in the way that you present yourself, and you are representing City and Guilds when you carry out an endpoint assessment. So there are expectations, and of course what we said earlier, there is a person specification for each standard that is really important that you look at when considering to apply as an IEPA.
So can I apply for all standards then?
It depends on your occupational experience and industry knowledge. So the most important thing is that we have a lot of people who have been assessors or assessing for quite some time, which is great, but we also need you to look at the standard that you are applying for. The person specification clearly outlines what we're looking for. So it's currency of knowledge, occupational experience, but also that the key word there is current. So what are you doing to ensure that you are keeping current and fresh in the industry and sector that you want to independently assess?
And is there any particular skills that you might be looking for somebody who wants to go into an endpoint assessment role? Is it not the same as always what we did before as assessors and verifiers?
So there is some crossover in the skills. Obviously we want people to make robust and clear and transparent assessment decisions against the standard. That hasn't changed. But in terms of the other skills, we need you to be, you need to be organised, be able to work independently, be self-motivated. Depending on the endpoint assessment that you'll be carrying out, there are various requirements in terms of time frames. So being organised, being able to carry out the full endpoint assessment. So being, once you commit to doing one, that we expect you to be able to carry it out from the start all the way through to the finish.
So if there's different parts of the assessment, you mean?
Yes, so endpoint assessment could, depending on the standard, includes a variety of assessment methods. So they could be a showcase portfolio, then an observation, professional discussion, an interview that is based on a project that's been submitted. So a whole wide variety, and every endpoint assessment is different depending on the standard. So it's really clear to be able to look at there may be a process before the endpoint assessment that you need to carry out, and of course then during and then afterwards.
Okay, thank you. So how do I apply?
Okay.
Where can I find out?
So we mentioned earlier about the City and Guilds website. So on there we have all of our current vacancies, all of the occupational areas and standards that we are currently recruiting for, and details of how to apply. So it's important you can go on there and set up an alert, so you can ensure that you get regular emails and alerts to the new jobs that are appearing on there. So that's one way that you can find out.
If I apply and I'm successful, what happens next?
Okay, so the first part would be to apply through the website and fill in your application. And the most important thing there is to ensure that you read the person specification. What are we asking for? Really take the time to put your application together, and don't make any assumptions about what we may or may not know about you. We need to hear about your occupational experience and your knowledge and what you can bring to the role. Once you've applied, that is then sent into City and Guilds and is reviewed by the Lead Independent End-point Assessor, the LIEPA. And they will look at the application and then decide if you then go on to the next stage.
And what's the next stage?
So the next stage would be that you would be then invited to come and join us for some training. So that usually involves a generic webinar, which gives you an overview of the endpoint assessment and how City and Guilds operate as an endpoint assessment organisation, and then a technical webinar, which is delivered by one of the leads to you. You will then come and join us for a face-to-face training day, a full day, and in every sense of the word. So lots of interaction, and the training day is very much part of our selection process. So if you're invited to the training, it's not a given that you will be given the role. We want to see how you interact with the other delegates, what you can bring to the day, how you interact. That's all very important as well.
So could I decide I don't want to do it after the training day?
Absolutely, yes. So sometimes the recruitment process is about finding out if you do want the role or perhaps it's not for you. And what we ask is that you are honest about that. So before you undertake all of the onboarding paperwork, which you would be sent if you were successful in obtaining a role, that you just let us know there and then. It's not for everybody, so please just do be honest with us.
And how many days could I expect to work?
As I said before, once you've done your onboarding paperwork and we've got you on the system, we would ask for your availability. So we said a minimum of 25 days across the year, but we want to know how many days per week or which month you are available. That goes onto a system, and when the bookings start coming through, the endpoint assessment team, who currently look after the bookings for all of our standards, would then contact you to see if you're available to do the endpoint assessment. And again, if you have something come through and it's something you can't commit to doing that endpoint assessment, that's okay as well, but you just need to be honest with us and say, I can't commit to doing that one, but perhaps the next one that comes through, as long as a minimum of 25 days are fulfilled in 1 year.
Okay, so I guess it's better to say no than let people down.
Exactly.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier about current occupational competence. How might we demonstrate that? And I think you mentioned CPD, so what's that all about?
Absolutely. So continuous professional development is something that we really look at when we're looking at the applications. We want to make sure that, like I said, we're not only competent in being able to assess an apprentice, but also that you have current industry knowledge for the standard that you've applied for. So it's really worth looking at the standard, looking at the person's specification, looking at your CPD. So if you're currently an assessor or maybe you are an EQA, that you look at that CPD and think about catering it towards the standards that you are applying for. That's what we really look for in our CPDs.
So give me some inside hints and tips. What can I do to give me a better chance of being successful when I apply?
Okay, so we're not asking you to completely rework the CPD. Perhaps provide an additional statement on your CPD, relate your activities, what you've engaged in, your training and experience, relate it to the standard. How is what I have done help me demonstrate that I'm qualified to actually assess this standard? That's what we're looking for. So perhaps some cross-referencing and mapping against that will really help.
And is there any technical IT requirements for the role?
So we currently operate an e-portfolio system. So within your CPD or your application, it would be really helpful to know what experience and knowledge you have of using e-portfolios.
Okay, so you are an independent endpoint assessor and a lead assessor. So tell us a little bit about your experience. What have you found? What have been the challenges, the interests?
So in terms of both roles, it's been a wonderful experience so far. After sort of 20 years within my industry, it's been a wonderful opportunity to give something back. But not only that, to meet a wide variety of people from across a wide different sectors. It's also been an opportunity to still be involved very much at the forefront of the apprenticeship. So going out and meeting these apprentices who've worked really hard over their apprenticeship programme, however long that may be, and you're sort of seeing a snapshot in time of somebody who has developed their skills, knowledge, and is a real privilege to be able to see that. So that's something that's really special about the role.
We also talked about the recruitment of lead independent assessors.
Yes.
What's different about that, and what are the different skill sets we might need?
Okay, so our lead independent endpoint assessors are crucial in ensuring that we uphold and maintain the integrity of the standards, as well as ensuring that our IEPAs are making robust and standardised assessment decisions across the standard. They're pivotal as well in helping to evolve and shape our endpoint assessment service. It's evolving all the time, sometimes on a weekly basis, so you need to be able to be flexible and demonstrate those skills of perhaps being able to coach and support individuals. It's a very different process, and lots of IEPAs are quite surprised actually when they start doing their endpoint assessment how different the process is. Being impartial and being independent, not giving that developmental feedback that we're all very used to doing is one of the things they find most challenging. And it's about also that recognising that we don't expect everybody to be able to do this first time or be perfect first time. That's what our support is for. So we pride ourselves at City and Guilds of the training and support that we offer our IEPAs. And part of that support that we can offer as leads is that where possible we would accompany you to your first EPA. And that's not a test, it's not whether you stay on board with us or not, it's very much a supportive visit. So it's not an observation, we call it a supportive visit.
So you don't expect perfection straight away?
Not at all, not at all. And all of our IEPAs who have been accompanied find, and the feedback we've had is that they find the experience incredibly useful and constructive and supportive. So it's a chance to discuss what you've seen and talk through any concerns actually on the day. So
a key function of the lead then is not only to provide the training but provide ongoing support. And do you report back on performance?
We do. So as leads, we would sample all of your assessment decisions, and at first we run a RAG rating system, so all of our IEPAs are red, if you like, and sometimes that can be worrying to them as well, that if they're very experienced, how come I'm red, or you need to see everything? It's because it's very new, and we want to make sure that firstly you feel confident with the role and the decisions you're making, but also that you feel fully supported and you are making those right decisions against the standard. So as a lead you have the benefit of seeing lots of different assessments, and obviously our job is to moderate and to notice trends and issues. So we report back to our associate manager at City and Guilds, and that shapes our standardisation days and training. It shapes the resources that we provide. So it's a role that is really about being supportive but demonstrating those coaching and leadership skills as well.
So can anybody apply for a lead role, or do you have to be an IEPA first, or what sort of particular skills set would you think is important?
So the Lead Independent Assessor role is something that we do get asked about and people are interested in. So what we would say is obviously to be familiar with the standard. Many of our IEPAs have gone on to be Lead Independent End-point Assessors, and of course that's a benefit because you have an insight into the role and the process for that endpoint assessment. But it's not essential, but obviously you'd have to demonstrate to us in your application that you've got all those key essential qualities and attributes that you can fully support a team of IEPAs working independently across the country.
Okay, so the purpose of this discussion was to tell the world about the role of the IEPA and the LIEPA. So why don't you give us the big sell now? Why should people apply?
As I said before, it's a wonderful team to work for in City and Guilds. We pride ourselves on all the support that we give all of our staff. But like I said, it's about being able to give something back to industry. If you have many years in industry and you want to share that or shape our endpoint assessment service, then please do consider coming to join us. It's a wonderful opportunity to meet a wide variety of people, share your skills with others, and obviously still be involved with the apprenticeship programme and see these wonderful apprentices complete their apprenticeship.
Okay, thank you very much, Veronica. That's been really, really useful. It's given us an overview of the role, why people might want to apply, a bit about the money, but also about the different types of contracts and the expected volumes. So it's really useful to help people understand, and you know, in the recruitment process, people can review this and think about, yeah, that's helpful. So thank you very much.
Thank you.